Art?
I'm also thinking that we need to preserve those bike paths on either side. That's a much more gradual valley up which bicyclists are going to want to pedal as opposed to tackling rolling hills directly. And I think the only real way to get around this that preserves some parking that I think is absolutely necessary, also preserves the bike lanes, because you also don't want to have bikes in the same lane go in different directions, also because that's not in accordance with Idaho law, where bikes have to ride the same direction as other vehicular traffic. But bump outs is the only thing, it seems to me, that makes much sense here, by way of preserving the lanes, preserving the traffic, and allowing for parking all in one design.
Tom?
Well, I think if we're going to treat this as a collector, I think it does need to continue to maintain the bike lanes. I would like to see parking, and if the best design for having parking in there is to have the bump outs, that's what I'd like to see happen as well. I think that, well, as Art said, it's going to be a pretty decent slope for accessing that side of town, and I think eventually, as Les says, we're going to see that road used as a collector once it connects around the rest of the way.
Dan, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, I'm leaning back towards what John started with about tabling it, because we seem to be doing a lot of design up here, and that's why I'm wondering, asking the staff, is this something that could be worked out and then come back, where tabling it would be a good option?
Bill?
If I might, if that's the council's desire, with some specific direction to staff, we have met with the applicant 3 times on these issues. They've indicated they wanted to proceed with what they had proposed, and then that puts you in the position of having to try to make a decision. If the council wants to see certain outcomes and makes that clear to the applicant and wants the applicant to meet with staff to see how that can be accomplished, we can certainly do that. But we have met multiple times and provide several options in a couple of cases, and the applicant desired to proceed with what they had initially proposed. So,
John?
Is it proper to ask the developer whether he would be willing to sit down and try to work this out? Or
You want to step back up here, sir?
Absolutely. There are certain things that we can certainly work with. Our goal would be to shorten Jordan Court to 150 feet. The different options that we gave to the fire department, one of them, which was accepted by the fire department, included putting a hammerhead at the end of that, which we thought would be far less safe at the end of the day. And so there are different options. I don't mind going back and forth and coming out to the best possible outcome. We have several dilemmas here, one of which is, how do we get it so that we can both have, so that we're accommodating what the fire department needs, but at the same time not taking up so much of the lots that we're rendering them unusable. I think the solution there, we can back that back to the 150. It makes the design perhaps a little less than ideal, but if the standard there is inflexible, then we can work with the 150 feet and change the lot design. As far as the consideration with the parking, there's different design alternatives that can work there. There's a point at which we get the street so wide that it's very difficult to accommodate the lots on the south side. I don't know, I can't tell you exactly what that width would be, but it's a give and take between all the different design scenarios. And at some point when the street gets sufficiently wide, those lots on the south side with the slope that they have, you start backing the street into the lot, and you end up creating other issues. And so we're willing to, to come to the table and try and look at different alternatives. The question is, how do we balance these things? It looks like the real issue that we need to address at this point would be the parking. We are willing to consider bump outs. I'm assuming that if we could do that in such a way that we can stay within the design width of 34 feet so that the bump out goes into the planter strip so that we're not getting the street excessively wide. Perhaps that's an alternative. I'm open to your questions.
Walter?
Okay, I've got two issues that I don't know that we've got consensus on up here. I'm starting to hear a little
Thank
bit.
you.
I'm hearing a little bit on some of them, and I'm trying to see if we can't get somewhere with this. Les, with a non-water line easement situation where you've got a storm and if they're correct, a storm and a sanitary 5 feet apart, a 20-foot will give you 7.5 feet on one side and 12.5 feet on the other to work. As they say, it's short. I think you can live with that. I understand the 30 if you're dealing with a 10-foot separation between a water line and a sanitary sewer line, then you're down to dealing with 5 feet on one side, and that's tough to stack dirt out of a hole. But I think that I personally believe the 20-foot easement, while not ideal, can work. A question for Mike. In our Mike Ray, please. In our packet, it talked about, and the applicant spoke to this, but I'm not sure if we've got a resolution, the developer's participation in the design of the park in the far east.
Amber Court.
Amber Court. Is that issue resolved, or do we still have a problem in staff's mind? Or maybe that's for
Certainly
Dwight.
up for Dr. Curtis.
Dr. Curtis. Dwight, I only say that because we're all so jealous. Do we still have an issue, or do we not? The staff.
I don't think so. I mean, the fact is, it still belongs to the city. The city would make the decision. It was just some of the earlier conversations that took place led to that language. But I think we're in agreement now, so I don't see an issue.
I think we're certainly in agreement if the developer's interested in participating in cost.
Right, but that's different than
understand.
being able to put restrictions on us.
I understand.
Thank you, Dwight.
Those are my only two remaining issues, and unless somebody else wishes to discuss, I'd be willing to make a crack at a motion.
Okay. Wayne,
Well, just a comment that I want to make prior to you making a motion, and that would be that I really don't want to table this, because they're going to want to break ground as soon as the weather allows them to break ground. And the more delays we give them, the more costly it can become. So, having been through this numerous times, I feel that we can come up with the guidelines that are going to be necessary to direct staff to work with the developer to come up with what we need to have done.
Tom, you had a question?
I was saying,
We're not going to take any more testimony from the audience.
I thought he was going to answer a question.
A question for you. I am
You need to go to the podium, Rafiq, please.
just a comment, quick comment. Rafiq Itani again. We are continuing 3rd Street into Rolling Hills, which is at the end of that phase that they're doing. We'll continue on. I assume whatever results of parking happen on that phase will carry through to our development, because we do have a approved subdivision, and so that should be, I would like to be included in that conversation with the city, with the staff, to make sure
is done.